Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're looking at eBay selling in 2024. We got a great book sent into us, eBay 2024 by
Yes.
Robert Pugh. And this is like a roadmap for how to sell on eBay
Uh-huh.
for new sellers and experienced sellers.
Hmm.
But one thing that really caught my eye was this whole thing with moving away from PayPal to eBay managed payments.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that?
So it is a pretty big shift. And I think for some sellers, it's going to seem like it's simpler, especially for brand new sellers. But Pew actually highlights some potential downsides, especially if you're an international seller or if you're selling high-value items. The fees can be a lot different than they were with PayPal. And there are some nuances with dispute resolution that we need to be aware of.
So even though it's kind of being presented as like
Yeah.
this simplified, streamlined thing, there are some hidden complexities.
Yeah, there are definitely things you need to look out for, and that's a theme throughout the whole book. Pugh really emphasizes the importance of understanding all the details, the policies, the fee structures, before you even start, before you even list that first item.
Okay, so let's talk about fees for a minute. What kind of fees are we looking at when we're selling on eBay?
So you've got the basics, the insertion fees, which is just when you create the listing. You've got to pay a small fee. Then there's the final value fees, and that's calculated as a percentage of the sale price, plus the shipping. But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Those percentages, they change depending on what category you're selling in.
Oh,
So for example, electronics might be 10%, but clothing might only be 8%.
so there's not just like a single fee structure. It depends on the category.
Exactly. And Pew has a really helpful chart in the book that breaks down those fees for each category.
That's got to be super useful for sellers.
It is. And he even suggests building a spreadsheet to track all of your costs and to really make sure that when you're setting your prices, you know what your profit margins are going to be.
Yeah,
So there's no surprises when it comes to payout time.
that makes a lot of sense. So we've got our account set up. We kind of have an idea about the fees. Now, the big question is,
Yeah.
what are we going to sell?
Well, that's the fun part. And Pew gives us a lot of tools to help us figure that out. One of the best ones is using eBay's sold listings feature,
Oh, yeah.
which basically lets you see what's already selling well. It's like having a crystal ball.
Yeah.
You can see what people are spending money on.
So what's hot in 2024?
Well, some things never go out of style. Electronics and accessories are always popular. But Pew also points out that vintage tech is making a huge comeback.
Vintage tech.
Yeah, I think like retro gaming consoles, old cell phones, vintage computers.
Really?
There's a lot of nostalgia driving those sales.
That's really interesting. I guess there are a lot of people out there who want to relive their childhoods.
They do. And those old gadgets are becoming collectible items.
So it's not just about selling the latest and greatest. There's a market for the blasts from the past.
Absolutely. And Pew also dives into a lot of other hot categories, like home and kitchen, fashion, health and beauty, collectibles. The key is to find something that you're passionate about and that you can offer something unique or valuable to buyers.
Okay, so we've got some ideas brewing about what to sell. Now, the next question is, where do we find all this stuff?
Right.
Do we hit up garage sales thrift stores?
That's definitely one option. And Pew has a whole section on what he calls treasure hunting for profit, finding those hidden gems at bargain prices. But he also encourages sellers to think outside the box.
What do you mean?
Have you ever heard of retail arbitrage?
Retail arbitrage. What is that?
So you're basically buying discounted items from stores like Walmart or Target and then reselling them on eBay for a profit.
You can do that.
Yep. And Pew gives you a framework for how to spot those clearance deals, how to calculate your profit margins. It's all about knowing where to look and how to spot the opportunities.
So you're kind of taking advantage of those things.
Exactly. And then flipping them.
I like it. It's a good strategy.
And if you're looking for a more consistent supply, Pew talks about working with wholesale suppliers
Okay.
where you can buy in bulk at a discounted rate and then resell those items individually.
It's a little bit more upfront investment.
It is, but it can be more profitable.
Okay, what about drop shipping? Is drop shipping still a thing in 2024?
It is, but Pew is cautious about it. It's definitely not a get-rich-quick scheme.
Okay.
With drop shipping, you're essentially the middleman. You list the product, but the supplier ships it directly to the buyer.
So you don't have to handle the inventory.
That's the appeal.
Right.
But you also have less control
Okay.
over quality control and shipping times.
Right. So if there's an issue,
Yeah.
that's going to fall on you.
Exactly. And competition is fierce, so it can be hard to stand out. Pew recommends, if you are going to do drop shipping, to really do your research.
Hmm.
Find a reputable supplier.
Makes sense. So we've talked about a lot of different sourcing options,
Yeah.
from thrift stores to retail arbitrage to wholesale to drop shipping. Let's say we have our products. Now, how do we make our listings stand out?
Right, because there's millions of items on eBay, so you got to make yours shine.
That's where the art of crafting a killer listing comes in.
Yeah. Pugh calls it creating your virtual storefront.
So what are the key ingredients?
Well, the first impression is everything, right?
Right.
So you've got to have a captivating title and a compelling description.
Okay, let's break that down. We'll start with the title. What makes a good title?
It needs to grab attention.
Yeah.
And it needs to include relevant keywords. So think brand, condition, size, model number. Keep it clear and concise. Avoid unnecessary punctuation or symbols, because that can confuse the search algorithm.
So if I'm selling a video game console, I wouldn't just put video game console.
Exactly. You'd want to be more specific, like Sony PlayStation 5 or whatever it is you're selling.
Okay, so the more specific,
Nah.
the better. The better. It helps eBay's algorithm understand what you're selling and match it with the right buyers.
Makes sense.
And don't forget about category and item specifics. eBay gives you all sorts of options to really fine-tune your listings, so use them.
So I'm not just picking electronics. I'm going down to video games and then consoles.
You got it. The more specific, the better.
Okay.
And here's a bonus tip. Regularly update your listings.
Really? So even if it's doing well, I should go in there and tweak it?
Yeah, eBay loves fresh content, so just little updates here and there can help boost your visibility.
Well, we're being specific with our titles.
Yeah.
Using categories and item specifics and keeping things fresh.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's talk about the description. That's where we get to be more creative, right? Absolutely. The description is your chance to tell the story of your product. Highlight its features and benefits. Be honest about its condition, and use bullet points to make it easy to read. And Pugh gives a really good tip.
Okay.
Include specific details like dimensions, materials, compatibility, anything that a buyer might want to know before they make that purchase.
So it's kind of like a mini sales pitch.
It is. But honesty is key. Don't oversell it. Don't exaggerate the condition. You want to build trust with your buyers.
That makes sense. So we've got the words down. Now let's talk about visuals. What about pictures?
Pictures are everything. You need high-quality images, use multiple angles, good lighting, neutral background to showcase your product in its best light.
Okay, anything else to keep in mind?
Yes, this is a great tip from Pugh. Showcase any defects.
Really? You mean if it has a scratch or a dent?
Yeah, show it clearly in the pictures.
Yeah.
And describe it accurately in your description.
So be transparent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it builds trust with buyers, and it reduces the likelihood of returns.
Okay, that's a great tip. So we've got our listing looking great, our description is enticing, we've got awesome pictures. Now comes the scary part, pricing.
It can be.
How do we decide how much to charge for our stuff?
Well, Pugh gives us a really solid framework for finding that sweet spot between being competitive and making sure you're making a profit.
So what's the strategy?
Research. You need to see what similar items are selling for both on eBay and other platforms. Check out your competitors and be willing to undercut them slightly.
Oh, so we're playing the game.
You got to be strategic. And Pugh also suggests offering bundle deals or bulk discounts to encourage people to buy more.
That makes sense.
And don't forget about the psychology of pricing.
What do you mean?
You know those .99 endings?
Oh, yeah. The classic.
It works. It might seem small, but it makes a difference.
I'm starting to see why this is called a deep dive. There are so many layers to this.
There are. It's more than just throwing an item up on eBay and hoping for the best.
Exactly. All right, another big decision. Auctions or fixed price listings?
That's a good question. And it really depends on the product and your goals.
Okay.
Auctions are great for rare items, collectibles, high-demand items. It creates a buzz, can drive up the price.
But for your everyday products, fixed price is probably...
Yeah, it's more straightforward, easier to manage.
Okay. Now, what about shipping?
That's a whole other beast.
Yeah,
But Pugh breaks it down into manageable steps.
I hope so. That's something I always get overwhelmed with.
The key is to choose the right carrier for what you're selling.
Good.
USPS is generally good for lightweight packages.
Ah.
FedEx or UPS might be better for larger
Right.
or more valuable items. And if you're shipping internationally, he highly recommends eBay's global shipping program.
I've heard of that. What's the advantage there?
It simplifies everything. They handle customs,
Yeah.
international tracking, even help with disputes. It takes a lot of the headache out of selling to a global audience.
So it's worth looking into.
Definitely. And Pugh even gives some tips for packaging your items to make sure they arrive safe and sound.
Let's talk about packaging. What are some of the must-knows?
He's all about sturdy boxes,
Mm-hmm.
protective packaging, you know, bubble wrap packing peanuts, clear labeling. And here's a little touch I love. He says to include a thank you note.
Oh, that's so nice. That's a great idea.
It's a small gesture, but it makes a big difference.
Totally. Okay, so our item is packaged up. It's on its way to the buyer. What happens next?
Now comes the equally important part, customer service.
Oh, yeah. We can't forget about that.
Pugh dedicates a significant portion of the book to the art of keeping those buyers happy.
Okay, I want to hear about this. What are some of Pugh's tips?
First and foremost, respond to inquiries promptly and professionally. Be friendly, be helpful, and always strive to resolve any issues quickly and fairly.
Communication is key.
Absolutely. And Pugh is a big advocate for having clear and concise return policies. He actually recommends a 30-day return window, which can actually boost buyer confidence.
Really? Why is that?
People are more likely to buy if they know they can return an item if it's not what they expected.
Okay, that makes sense. It takes the risk out of it.
Exactly. And even though returns can be a hassle, Pugh has some really good advice on how to handle them gracefully.
Okay, like what?
Offer full refunds or replacements for damaged or incorrect items.
Okay.
And whenever possible, try to resolve issues directly with the buyer before it escalates into a formal dispute.
So be proactive.
Yes. And if you do have a negative experience, like a return or some negative feedback, use it as a learning opportunity. Analyze what went wrong and see if there's anything you can do to improve your process.
I love that. Continuous improvement.
Always learning.
We've covered so much ground already.
We have, from setting up shop to finding products to crafting those killer listings to providing top-notch customer service.
I'm feeling like I could launch an eBay business right now.
You absolutely could, but we're just scratching the surface.
Oh, really?
There's a whole other world of eBay strategies and tactics waiting to be explored.
Well, I am definitely ready to explore more, so stay tuned because in part 2, we are going to be talking about how to promote your listings, how to scale your business, and how to stay ahead of the eBay curve.
I'm excited. Let's do it.
All right, so we're back and ready to dive even deeper into eBay selling. In part 1, we talked about getting set up, finding products, and creating awesome listings. But how do we make sure those listings actually get seen by buyers?
That's the million-dollar question. Luckily, Pugh has some really solid strategies getting your listings noticed. He talks about optimizing for eBay's search engine and then using eBay's promotional tools.
Okay, so let's start with search engine optimization. How does that work on eBay?
It's all about understanding how eBay's algorithm works. Think of it like a giant matchmaking system. It's trying to connect buyers who are searching for something specific with the most relevant and high-quality listings.
Okay, so how do we make sure our listings are the ones that get chosen?
First and foremost, keywords are king. You need to make sure your titles and descriptions are packed with relevant keywords that accurately describe your product. So when a buyer searches for something, your listing pops up.
Okay, so like if I'm selling a vintage Nintendo console, I wouldn't just put game console.
Right, you'd want to be more specific, like Nintendo Entertainment System, maybe even the model number.
So the more specific I am with those keywords, the better chance I have of showing up.
Exactly. It helps the algorithm understand exactly what you're selling and match it with the right buyers.
And what about those category and item specifics?
Use them. eBay gives you all these options for a reason, so don't just pick electronics. Drill down to video games, then consoles, then Nintendo NES.
Okay, so the more specific, the better.
Absolutely. And here's another tip from Pugh. Regularly update your listings.
Oh, really? Why is that?
eBay loves fresh content, so even if your listing is doing well, go in there and tweak the description, add some new pictures. It shows eBay that your listing is active and relevant.
So it's like giving it a little boost.
Exactly. Okay, so we're using keywords strategically. We're being super specific with our categories, and we're keeping things fresh.
Anything else we can do to improve our search ranking?
2 words.
Okay.
Fast shipping and competitive pricing.
I knew you were going to say shipping. Everyone wants free shipping these days.
They do. But is that always the best option for sellers? It's a tough one. Free shipping can definitely attract buyers, and it can help with your search ranking. But you need to make sure you're factoring those costs into your pricing.
Right. Otherwise, you're losing money.
Exactly. Pugh recommends offering a variety of shipping options and being really transparent about the costs.
So give the buyers choices. Let them decide if they want to pay a little extra for faster shipping.
Exactly. It's all about being upfront and honest.
What about pricing? How do we find that sweet spot?
Research is key. Check out what similar items are selling for. See what your competitors are doing, and then be willing to adjust your prices accordingly. And don't forget those psychological pricing tricks we talked about.
Oh yeah, like the .99 endings.
Those little things can make a big difference.
All right, so we've got search engine optimization down. We're being smart with our pricing and our shipping. Now let's talk about those promotional tools. What does eBay offer?
eBay has a whole toolbox of promotional options. One of the most popular is promoted listings.
I've heard of those. How do they work?
It's essentially pay-per-click advertising. You choose keywords related to your listings, you set a bid, and then when someone searches for those terms, your listing will show up more prominently in the search results.
So it's a way to kind of jump to the front of the line,
Exactly. It can be a great way to get more exposure.
but I imagine it can get expensive.
It can. Pugh recommends starting small. Experiment with different bids and keywords and track your results carefully. That way you can see what's giving you the best return on investment.
So we're testing the waters before we dive all in.
Exactly. You don't want to blow your whole budget on promoted listings.
Okay, what other tools are there?
Another really useful tool is Markdown Manager. This lets you create sales and discounts, which is a great way to entice buyers and to maybe clear out some inventory.
So I could offer like a 10% discount on all vintage video games?
You could. You can schedule these sales in advance. You can even create coupons and offer bulk discounts.
It's awesome. It's like having my own little marketing department.
It is. And don't forget about social media.
Oh, yeah.
Pugh recommends promoting your listings on platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's a great way to reach a wider audience and drive traffic to your eBay store.
Especially if you're trying to build a brand or you have a specific niche.
Exactly. It's all about getting the word out there.
What about email marketing? Is that still relevant?
It's more relevant than ever. Build an email list of your customers so you can keep them updated on new arrivals, sales, special offers.
So we're creating a community of loyal eBay shoppers.
Absolutely. People who love what you're selling.
This is all sounding really good. We're optimizing our listings, running promotions, engaging on social media. Let's say things are going well. We're making sales. We're building a customer base. Now, how do we take it to the next level? How do we scale up our eBay operation?
That's where things get really exciting. Pugh has a whole chapter dedicated to scaling your business strategically and efficiently.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Before you even think about scaling, he says you need to analyze your sales data. What's selling well? What are your most profitable categories? What are your customers saying? Once you understand what's working, you can start to make informed decisions about growth.
Okay, so we're not just randomly adding more products.
Right. You need a plan.
So what's the plan?
Well, if you're ready to increase your volume, Pugh recommends sourcing in bulk from wholesalers. You get lower prices per item, which means higher profit margins.
That makes sense, especially if I've already identified some best-selling products.
Exactly. But managing a larger inventory can get tricky.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. How do I keep track of everything?
Pugh is a big fan of spreadsheets.
Spreadsheets.
Yeah, I know it sounds old school, but it's a simple and effective way to stay organized. Track your inventory, your costs, your sales.
Okay, so I'm building my eBay empire with spreadsheets.
You are. And if you start to feel overwhelmed, don't be afraid to outsource.
Oh, you mean like hiring someone to help?
Exactly. You could hire a virtual assistant to handle things like customer service, order fulfillment, social media management.
So I can focus on the big picture stuff.
That's the goal. And speaking of big picture, Pugh highly recommends opening an eBay store.
Oh, I've heard of those. What are the advantages?
They offer a ton of benefits. You get a professional storefront, lower fees, branding opportunities, access to advanced marketing tools, and it can really help you build a loyal customer base.
It sounds like the next logical step for a serious eBay seller.
It is. And Pugh gives you a step-by-step guide to setting up your own eBay store.
This is great. I feel like we've gone from listing our first item to building a full-fledged eBay business.
You have. You're well on your way.
I'm excited, but I'm also a little scared. Are there any common pitfalls we should be aware of?
That's a smart question. And Pugh doesn't shy away from the challenges. He talks about the mistakes that sellers often make, so we can learn from them and avoid them.
Okay, hit me with it. What are some of the biggest mistakes?
One of the most common mistakes is overpricing. You might think you're getting a good deal, but if your prices are too high, buyers will just go elsewhere.
That makes sense. Competition is fierce.
It is. You got to be competitive.
What else?
Another big mistake is neglecting customer service. Ignoring inquiries, responding rudely, failing to resolve issues.
That's a recipe for disaster.
It is. You can have amazing products, great prices, but if your customer service is bad, it's going to hurt you in the long run.
So it's all about building those relationships
Yeah,
with your buyers.
it is. You want to create a positive experience.
What about following the rules? How important is that?
It's crucial. Violating eBay's policies, even accidentally, can get you in trouble. You could get suspended or even banned.
Okay, so we definitely need to make sure we're playing by the rules. What else?
Another common mistake is failing to optimize your listings. You could have the greatest product in the world, but if nobody can find it, it's not going to sell.
It's all for nothing. So we got to keep refining those listings, experimenting with keywords, using all the tools that eBay provides.
To make sure our listings are seen.
Okay, we've talked about some of the pitfalls. Let's end on a positive note.
Hey.
What are some of the key takeaways from eBay 2024?
I think one of the biggest takeaways is that success on eBay is about being adaptable. The online world is constantly changing, so you need to be willing to change with it.
So it's not just about learning a set of rules and then sticking to them forever.
Exactly. You need to be flexible.
Okay, I like that. So what's next? In part 3, we're going to be talking about how to future-proof your eBay success, how to stay ahead of the game, and make sure your business thrives.
No matter what changes eBay throws at you.
Sounds good. I'll see you there. All right, we are back for the final part of our eBay deep dive. And I'm feeling pretty pumped about selling on eBay after going through all this great info from eBay 2024.
Me too. It's a really insightful book.
It is. But, you know, the online world is always changing.
Always.
So how do we make sure our success on eBay isn't just like a flash in the pan? How do we future-proof our eBay businesses?
That's the question everyone should be asking. And luckily, Pugh gives us some answers.
Okay, I'm ready. What's the secret sauce?
He has 2 main points: adapt and diversify.
Okay, so we need to adapt to the changes that are happening on eBay.
But we also need to think about diversifying our income streams, so we're not just relying on eBay.
Okay, let's start with adapting. How do we keep up with all the changes on eBay?
The eBay seller updates are your best friend.
Okay, I'm going to bookmark that page right now.
It's where they announce new features, policy changes, fee adjustments, everything you need to know to stay compliant and competitive.
So make it a habit to check those updates regularly.
Regularly. Don't just ignore them.
What else can we do to stay in the loop?
Attend webinars, participate in seller forums, connect with other eBay sellers.
Oh, so networking is important.
It's huge. It's a community.
Yeah.
And the more connected you are,
Right.
the more support you'll have.
Okay. So we're checking those seller updates. We're networking with other sellers. Now, what about diversifying beyond eBay? What does that look like in practice?
It could mean exploring other online marketplaces, like Amazon, Etsy, or even Facebook Marketplace.
So kind of branching out.
Exactly. Each platform has its own unique audience and its own set of rules.
So it's about finding the right fit for my products and my target market.
Exactly.
Pugh also suggests considering creating your own e-commerce website. My own website.
It sounds daunting, but it gives you ultimate control.
Okay. Control over what?
Your brand, your customer data, your destiny.
So I'm not at the mercy of eBay's fees and policies.
Exactly.
But what about all those loyal eBay customers I've built up?
That's where email marketing comes in.
Oh, okay. So I can still reach them.
You can keep them in the loop, no matter where you're selling.
I like it. So it's like taking my community with me.
Precisely. You're building a sustainable business, not just relying on one platform.
Pugh talks about eBay changing. What kind of trends does he see happening?
He talks about the continued growth of mobile commerce, so people are buying more and more stuff on their phones. He also talks about the increasing demand for personalization. People want a shopping experience that's tailored to their needs and interests. And he talks about the growing influence of social media.
Oh, social media is huge. I mean, it's everywhere.
It is, and it's definitely shaping how people shop.
So we need to be thinking about all this.
Absolutely. Make sure your listings look good on mobile devices. Think about ways to personalize the buying experience and use social media to your advantage. And be ready to embrace new technologies as they come along.
Like what?
Artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality.
Wow. It's a lot to keep up with.
It is. But it's also exciting. The world of e-commerce is constantly evolving.
It is. And there's always something new to learn. But at the end of the day, it's still about the human connection.
It is. Building relationships with your customers, providing excellent service, and creating a positive experience.
That's what's going to set us apart. That's what's going to make people want to buy from us again and again.
Exactly. You can have the best technology in the world, but if you don't treat your customers well,
Yeah.
they're not going to stick around.
All right, so for anyone listening who's thinking about starting an eBay business, what's the one piece of advice we should leave them with?
Don't be afraid to jump in and experiment.
Yeah, just get started.
The best way to learn is by doing.
I agree. And remember, it's a journey. There will be ups and downs.
Yeah.
But with the right knowledge.
And a willingness to adapt, you can achieve some amazing things on eBay.
And maybe even write your own book someday. Who knows? Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. Thank you so much for taking us through eBay 2024.
It's been my pleasure. I've enjoyed it.
I think everyone listening has gotten a lot out of this. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. We hope you feel inspired and empowered to launch your own eBay adventure. Happy selling, everyone.